All right, so hello everybody. This is another video Journey to Master. I just got back from the World Open basically, so I figured I would take one of the games that I played in that tournament and show it to you all. Now, this game I had a wonderful position out of the opening, basically a dream position. It's exactly what I look for in a chess game, but I screwed it up. So this game was against Kevin Zhao. And I'm gonna basically try and just go over what I kind of did wrong, why it happened, and what I could have done better, and why I shouldn't. Basically, the major mistake that I made in this game was vetoing something for no reason at all. I didn't find anything bad about it, but I just figured, let's do something else, and you'll see what I mean in a little bit. So Kevin Zhao is about 1830. And so I was playing white here, and I started with d4. Before the game, I saw that some of the games that he had played had f5 in it, and I was expecting f5, well, not actually f5, but e6, and then after bishop to f4, f5. And I was expecting that we'd kind of get this position. I'd done a little bit of research on how to play this, however, at the time I really didn't know what I was doing all that. But I was pleasantly surprised when he played c5 on move 1, and I was quite happy to see this simply because I love to play against the Benoni. Generally, the structures that I will get in the Benoni are some of my favorite structures in chess, just because they play exactly to what my strengths are. So I played d5, of course. There's the Benko, which can be annoying for me, but in a classical game, it's not all that great because generally in a classical game, you just take the pawn and calculate. So he played d6 here, and I played c4. And my idea is just to play like this and take a full center. And I'm just actually, you'll see the way that I play against the Benoni, I like really, really take the center. g6, I play e4, and after bishop to g7, I play f4 too. I just really clamp down on the center here, basically just trying to take all of the space that I can. I'm controlling all of these squares in the center of the board, right? Not so much this one. Okay, let's highlight the squares that I'm controlling out of these 16 squares here, because this is kind of the center, I don't know, square. These are the main four that you want, but there's also these flank squares that you want to get if you can, right? So out of these 16 squares, how many am I controlling? I'm controlling one, two, three, four. I control this square, I control this square. So that is already six. I control this square, that's 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I control 12 out of the 16 central squares, basically. And that's why I like playing this opening, or playing against this opening, I should say, because I really like to constrict my opponents and make sure they have no moves. My opponent just castles here. Of course, like, Benoni, it's not like I'm immediately winning, but black is worse, and I know that. And after he plays e6, I just play calmly bishop d3, takes, and I still really haven't given up any of my control of the center of the board. This c-pawn was basically just there so I didn't have to take back to the e-pawn, because then I would be giving up this f5 square. After rook e8, I figure it's a good idea, okay, this pawn is pinned, and I can castle. So I do, I just castle, get the king out of the center of the board, and white just has a really pleasant game now. So white is probably already close to +1. That would be my guess. Knight a6 with the idea to get to b4. And basically in the Benoni, I have kind of this rule when I play against it. When I see knight a6, I play a3. And when I see a6, I play a4. And generally I'll try and play a5 and make sure they can't play b5 themselves. So in this game, my opponent played here, and I play a3 and knight c7. And so here I kind of forgot about the fact. So I defended the pawn because after b5 I wanted to take, but I kind of forgot about the fact that he could still just play b5 here. In fact, I think it's definitely by far the best move to play b5. Just because it's like taking space, making sure your bishop's probably not going that way, probably going this way, but just taking some space on the queen side because I have the space in the center of the board. Like I basically control like all of this almost. Right? I almost control like all of these squares, basically. This entire square is almost just mine. So I'm definitely in control of the king side. I think he should have played b5 to try and take control of the queen side, especially that I've played a3 and b4 can become a threat. And I have to kind of deal with that because when I play knight e2, this pawn would be hanging. And the way that I would deal with that, I think, is I would just play something like queens at c2. And that way, once I go here, I will try and reroute to g3, like so. But my opponent played a6, which I think is a little bit slow. It's definitely preparing to play b5 still, which is certainly the idea behind this opening. And so here what I do is I play bishop c2, because I know another idea in the Benoni opening is that you really, really, really want to play this e5 move if at all ever possible. So my idea here was after b5 that I would be able to play this e5 move. And the reason I can play this e5 move is because after takes takes, if you try and play knight takes, I would have this move. Actually, I think I take with the knight first. And if queen takes here, here, right? And when you try and do this, I pin it again. And eventually I'm just going to try and win this knight. So maybe I miscalculated in this specific position. Ah, wait, no, I'm stupid. You can't take with this knight, you have to take with this one. Right, and then I can go here. And after takes, I have takes. After takes, I have takes. And after takes, then I can just retake here, and now I'm just up an exchange. Well, I now have a rook for a knight and a pawn. So that was the general idea here for me. So I really want to play e5. My opponent, however, saw all of this and prevented this by playing this move bishop to g4. Oops. What did I just do? Okay, bishop to g4. With the idea that now this knight is pinned, e5 is not defended sufficiently, right? So 1, 2, and so also he's going to try and take my knight and make my queen go this way. So I can't really play e5 anymore. So what I do is bishop to d2. And the general idea behind bishop to d2 was, okay, I'm just developing another piece. If he takes, I'm probably happy because I'm going to be able to take, though I do surrender the ability to play e5 in the future, at least until this bishop moves, because now my queen is no longer supporting the pawn. So now he plays b5, and I play h3, with the idea that after takes, I think this is quite pleasant for me after b4 because I will just take and then play knight to e2 and reroute to g3, where I'm still supporting the center. This pawn is maybe slightly weak, and my b2 pawn will be easily defended, and I can take control of the c-file as well. So my opponent did not take my knight. He instead played bishop to c8, which I definitely think was the best move in this position. Bishop c8 does seem the strongest to me, with the idea that he is going to try and go this way and pressure my center even more, maybe by playing knight back and playing f5. That's actually what I was very, very afraid of, was something like knight h5 and f5. And actually here, I had some ideas of trying to play b4, but the problem that I found with b4 is actually just this. He does not have to take this or play c4. If he played c4, I would have been very, very happy, because after c4, I just get time to move my rook. And though this is a protected passed pawn, this pawn now becomes a target, and I can play something like knight d4 or just bishop e3 and have a very calm game, try and play bishop d4. But instead, what I was actually afraid of here was if takes, then there is this move like knight h5, and my bishop is overworked because it has to defend both of these pieces, and the knight is pinned. So I wasn't sure if this was very good, and even after something like rook to c1, I thought that it was possible to just, well, take this pawn, right? It's possible to just take this pawn and then take the knight, and then actually just win another pawn too. Now, I don't think it's actually good to do it this way, because if you do it this way and then take on f4, then I believe after this, my attack actually ends up being quite strong. even though I'm down a pawn, this battery is really annoying. And at any time, I can just take on f6 and regain the pawn anyway, right? And my center's still strong. Now you just have a really weak d6 pawn. But yeah, the other capture was what I was worried about, was knight takes f4. So I did not want to play this b4 move yet. So instead what I did was I tried to prepare it a little bit by playing queen to c1. And the general idea behind queen to c1 here is that now after b4, this pawn is defended, right? So let's say black does a nothing move. Say king h8. And b4, if takes, now after knight h5, this bishop is no longer overworked because there's a queen defending the pawn as well. So say rook b8, if takes, then so I can take, and after takes, I can I also see. So here's the other thing. I've lined it up on the c file as well. So something like rook e2, and I will always have threats of moving this bishop and trying to get in with the queen. And this pawn ends up being very weak. So though you could still do that after queen c1, I don't think it's quite as strong. But the other thing with queen c1 is I'm trying to play knight to d1 to f2, right? Once, especially if I get knight to d1 and knight to f2, I'm going to try and oppose this bishop on the diagonal, because that is certainly by far in this position, that bishop on g7 is my opponent's strongest piece. Completely outmatches this bishop, right? This bishop isn't too great either, but the thing is, this bishop is also really awful. You'll notice, like, okay, it has two squares that it can actually move to, right? b7 and d7, and neither of them really do anything. All the other squares are taken up by my center and h3, right? So that bishop's kind of like trapped. This bishop, however, is kind of patrolling this entire long diagonal, and so it is very strong. The other thing is b4 is coming, and I'd rather my knight be on f2, and I'm trying to kind of initiate an attack on the king side with moves like g4 and g5 and knight to g4 and stuff like that. So I play queen c1, and my opponent plays very slow here. He plays this move rook to b8, which I don't really think is doing all that much. I I think rook b8 is definitely a mistake, because you've done really nothing. It's not even improving the position of the rook very much, because I mean on a8 it maybe even supports this push. This pawn push was already supported. I think black should try and find something to do with the queen, and maybe try and reroute the knight this way. And again, I think it is strong to try and play this f5 push. Say instead of rook to b8, play something like knight to d7 or knight to h5. Actually, after knight to h5, I was going to play g4, like this, and I thought that this was probably pretty good for me. And if, by the way, if knight to g3, king to g2, and actually the knight ends up being trapped here because this pawn is patrolling, and then this one is just too well defended by all my pieces. So the knight ends up being trapped if you go to g3, and so you'd have to go back to f6, and basically I get the same position except I've played g4. Now, whether or not that's a good thing is, I don't know. But after knight to d7, I actually had the same idea of trying to play g4, so that after f5, I can take this way and try and attack on this file or something like that. Actually, after f5, it might just be to my benefit to try and get the knight in this way, something like this. But yeah, so I thought that trying to play knight d7 was probably my opponent's best try here, because f5 kind of questions this center here, because if this pawn falls on e4, then this pawn on d5 will also very quickly fall. And since I played f4, I can't try and support it with a move like f3. But he plays rook to b8, and I thought that this was slow. And so I basically just continue my plan of playing knight to d1, and so he plays bishop to b7. I also think this move is slow. I mean, you've kind of accomplished nothing with these two moves. You've moved your bishop and your rook two squares, kind of just done nothing. So I play knight f2, and I'm slowly improving my position. And now basically my two move plan is to play bishop to c3 and queen to d2. And then I'm doing like really well. My bishop is lined up here. My queen is now supporting again, and I have ideas of just bringing the rook in. So he plays rook to c8. I was like, okay, bishop c3. I just continue with my plan because my opponent has basically just done nothing with these three moves. I've essentially gotten three free moves here. Rook b8, rook c8, and bishop b7 just made no threats, so I just continued to improve. And after knight to d7, here again I was you'll remember me saying this bishop on g7 is way stronger than this bishop ever will be. So as soon as I see this trade, I immediately snap take this. And after king takes, play queen d2, and I'm trying to play something like e5 or f5 after knight g4. And actually, my plan here was to play this move knight to g4, and then play f5 and try and play queen h6. From here, that was basically now what my plan was. My opponent played b4. I actually don't know what that move does. I just took on b4. If takes, I just take a free pawn. Right, and he played, so after here, he played c4. And so I actually can't take this pawn. If I try and go like check and say king back and here, then he has this move knight takes d5, opening up on the queen, and I can't take the knight. So that's probably not good for me. But after c4, I just played knight to g4, continuing with my plan of just trying to play f5 and queen h6. And so here he played knight b5, and here I sat at the board, and I don't know what happened here. My brain just sort of just turned off or something, because if you remember me saying about 4 or 5 times, the entire plan of my position is to play this move f5 and try and play queen h6. And here I I'm right. If I play this move f5, the position is +8 for me, right? I'm completely winning after f5. But here I was just like, huh, remember that other idea in the Benoni where I try and play e5 and then get these really strong pawns? Why don't I try that instead? So I played e5 instead of f5. I don't know why. I mean, I'm still a little bit better, but it's a matter of like +2 versus +8. And from there, I don't know, my brain just proceeded to shut off for the rest of the game. I played really badly. But here, what I had calculated, and here's what I was saying, it was a huge mistake to just veto this line for no reason. I calculated after f5, he had to play rook h8 because otherwise I'm playing queen h6 and some knight f6 or f6 or knight g5. So say something like, I don't know, if you play knight e5, queen h6, right, king g8, and knight g5, I will just win the game because I'm threatening checkmate, and there's basically just no way to stop me. So you have to play rook h8 here as black, otherwise you're going to get mated. And after queen h6, king g8, I was like, huh, well, there's just not like an immediate win. But what I failed to consider here in this position, and I think this is a really big thing that holds me back from getting to my goal of reaching master, is that I don't need to get an immediate win in this position. All I need to know is that I'm doing way better here than my opponent is, right? I can just play a normal move like rook a to d1, and it's still +8. Why? Well, here's why. Well, first off, I'm up the pawn, right? This pawn is weak. This king is getting attacked by my forces, right? My rooks are better. This rook, oops. Wow, that was really smooth there. I have no idea where I just went. This rook is kind of awful, right? It's staring at its own pawn. C3 isn't really doing much. This knight, and this bishop are kind of on the wrong side of the board. This rook is literally just trapped for the rest of the game. My opponent is basically playing without like a rook and a bishop because okay, these knights have some possibility of accomplishing something. This rook and this queen have some possibility of accomplishing something. But here's the thing. This rook and this bishop, they don't. That's why it's +8. Is because black is basically just playing without 8 points of material. A rook plus a bishop, that's 8 points of material. It's +8 because his pieces aren't doing anything. And so I just failed to consider here that, right, he's just playing without 8 points of material. And instead, I play this move e5, and I just completely blank on the fact that my opponent can just play h5, kicking my knight out, and then play knight to b6, and I just have no way to defend this pawn anymore. Right? It's attacked twice, only defended once by the queen. And so the best move here is to try and play e6 and destabilize over here and try and start some sort of attack. That's still +2. I play the move bishop to e4, and my advantage is just slowly dwindling now. And so here's the thing, this defends it again, but after here, it's attacked 3 times, and I don't have a good way to defend it. I try rook to d1 with the idea that I'm gonna try and push this pawn or something, but the problem here is that he just plays c3, right? And after takes, well, first off, he can take, but he has this even stronger move, which is knight to c4. Knight to c4 displaces my queen, and now he's just gonna take this pawn too. And then my bishop is kind of under wraps. This pawn is still going to end up hanging. And my position has suddenly just crumbled. I went from +8, and now we're kind of all the way down to -2 now, right? He plays knight c to d6. This bishop is going to end up getting taken soon. This pawn is falling, this pawn is falling. Once this pawn falls, this one will soon too, right? And I mean, I've just completely crumbled. Now black's pieces are suddenly perfectly placed, right? Instead of playing f5 and trying to initiate the attack like I calculated that I should have done, I instead didn't trust my intuition when I should have, and now I'm just like way worse. I try knight to d4, completely missing, by the way, that after knight takes and rook takes, that he has bishop. I think it's here. It's either here or he can play something like queen e7, and with the idea that this is just pinned, and he's just going to try and pressure this. Also, rook takes c3 is on the board as well. I'm just kind of falling apart. Instead, my opponent plays knight takes c3, and I play rook to d3. And here he had the opportunity to just win the game because he can play bishop takes, and now I just really can't defend this bishop anymore. It's attacked 1, 2, 3, 4 times, and I have it defended with major pieces, which is a problem when 3 out of the 4 things attacking are minor pieces. So I'm basically just losing exchange or losing a piece here. So, but he misses that. He plays knight takes d5, attacking my queen, and he's still way better here. And here I play queen to d2, trying to defend this, kind of expecting knight here. I was trying to maybe find some way to play bishop takes g6 and attack on the king side, but I just could never find it. He plays queen f6, and I was like, okay, maybe I have some opportunities. Somehow I can get knight f5 in or something, and try and still attack. But my opponent plays very solid. He plays queen e7. Here I play rook to g3, kind of with the threat of if this knight moves, like say knight takes bishop, I can play knight to f5 check. So actually this is a cool line. So if knight takes bishop, knight to f5 check. If king to right here, now I can take this with check. I can also play I can also play this. And I'm just going to try and take the queen. Where is it here? Here there was I remember I calculated a win here. I think it was this capture. And so if you capture, I will take back with the rook. And so now my queen is not under attack anymore, right? If you take here, then I have where's my win? Where's I okay, hold on. Ah, okay, rook g5. I have rook g5, and then here I can play knight to c5. And it's a double check, and I'm skewering here. So you can't really move that knight, especially not to take the bishop. But okay, he just plays this. I play rook g5, and I'm just trying to kick the queen out, find something, anything to do. But he finds this nice move, knight to c4, with the idea of, okay, I take, and it seems like I'm winning piece, but he has rook takes, and after takes, he has rook to c1. And here he offered a draw, and I should accept here because actually he's just winning a piece. I didn't see that. I don't know. My brain was going funky for this game. And I play this move knight to d1, and after rook d1, king f2. I forgot about the fact that after king f6, my rook has to move, and this bishop will be hanging. Um, Thankfully for me, he did not see that, and he played bishop takes d5. After rook takes d5, rook to b1, knight to c6, rook to b2. I play this move king to e3. And so here we agreed to a draw, and I was kind of just devastated at this game. Um, Maybe there were some underlying factors that came into my demise here, but the big problem I think was just I don't know. This game was I did not trust my intuition. I didn't play the way that I naturally do, which is to just try and attack. Though I do like to constrict, my other main thing that I play every chess position as is I love to attack. Attack, attack, attack. That's kind of just what I do. And in this game, I just didn't do that. I was trying to play solid and I tried to basically slow play the position, but I played it too slowly. And so I think that was my big problem in this game where I just dropped a +8 advantage. I mean, I guess it happens sometimes. I was lucky to get a draw here. This position is actually still very good for black after knight to c4. Overall, yeah, this game was not really that good, but I think I got a very good lesson out of it. And that lesson is that I need to play to what my strengths are. If I do not play my strengths as a chess player, I'm going to get these positions where I'm doing super well, and then I just don't trust what I should be doing because it is what I should be doing, even if my coach sometimes will tell me, "Yes, I try and fast play the position." And yeah, I agree. I do that sometimes. But it's also just as bad to slow play this position so slowly that I just play wrong, right? And I think that's what happened in this game. And so that's the lesson that I need to take away from this basically. I need to play more like myself. And that was kind of a theme across a lot of the games in this tournament. In this tournament, I did end up going 5 out of 9, so I got a plus score, but 4 of those games were draws. 2 of them from the white side where I had a much better position. So, yeah, in general, I guess, you know, this is another one where it's like, that really sucks. But I think on a journey like this, where I'm trying to get to master level, these are the types of difficult lessons that I need to learn early and stick stick with, right? These need to kind of stick with me. I need to play to my strengths, not to someone else's, right? And I think that goes for everybody. But okay, thank you all for watching. Sorry for the little rant at the end. And I will see you all in the next video, hopefully coming out sometime in the next few days. Bye. Make sure to like and subscribe, by the way.